Good morning and welcome. Welcome to First Universalist Church of Rochester, where we are called to nurture the spirit and serve the community. I'm Reverend Margaret Weis. My pronouns are she, her, and I have the privilege of being your sabbatical minister. Leading worship with me today are Trish Gallagher, pronouns she, her, as our worship associate, Dr. Brock Chesfold, pronouns he, him, for our music, Jack Cunningham, pronouns he, him, providing tech support, Reverend Michelle, pronouns she, her, telling our story this morning, and Lisa Gwinner, pronouns she, her, for our online ministry team. I'm told that Keith Stott is in here in person this morning. Welcome, Keith. It's good to see you. I'll make a note that those of you who are here in person, we've run out of orders of service. So if you'd be so good as to share with your neighbor, that would be helpful. If you're here for the first time this morning, we especially welcome you. Thank you for making your way to this worshiping community. We have a visitor's form that can be found in the chat for our folks online and can be accessed by scanning our QR code in your pews or on the back of your order of service for folks who are here in person. Please fill out this form so that we can offer you a welcome beyond this worship service. Before we take a moment to turn to our neighbor, let us take a moment to turn towards the camera and to greet our online worshiping community. If you're online, please pop into the chat to offer a greeting. And for those of us online, if you can wait to share your joys and sorrows until later in the service, they'll be visible to those of us in the sanctuary. And if you are here in person this morning, here at First Universalist, please take a moment to turn to your neighbor and offer a greeting. Let's join our voices together in song. Our opening hymn this morning is number 128, For All That Is Our Life.
I'll bet you, like me, are overwhelmed with all the good causes clamoring for our support. First mistake, okay. Perfect sucks, that's our motto, okay. My overriding passion is saving the earth and wildlife from global warming. Think big, I say. Since I am only one non-Koch brother person, I must do that by monthly donations to environmental not-for-profits, while I write letters and emails, make phone calls, and fly banners from my city porch. Occasionally, I even help a single monarch butterfly migrate south. 1 letter a day, said my beloved environmental sciences professor more than 50 years ago. That I can do. My fervent hope is that our descendants will inherit a diverse and improving earth on which to live and love and prosper. I believe it is possible. After all, I have always been a Pollyanna. I also work on Democratic political campaigns from judgeships to presidents. I give advice, do grunt work, and yes, make donations. A great number of UUs helped me to get elected, and I pay that forward by helping other candidates. A couple children's not-for-profits, too, have garnered my support as I'm retired. I have less time for all this stuff. But I also recently took a niece into my home for 6 months at a time of her great need. And then there's my version of reparations. I buy art from Native Americans. A part-time vegan, full-time vegetarian, and a Prius driver, I nonetheless live in a big house and I fly around a lot. I project good thoughts. I feel guilty. I try not to think about the bad stuff, including probable unending waves of desperate immigrants, reminiscent of Irish potato famine immigrants. I hope I am doing more good than harm. I am not sure. So I eat chocolate. Come, let us worship together. Okay, as Walter and Reverend Michelle light our chalice at First Universalist Church, and as you light a chalice in your own home, will you join me in saying our chalice words in unison? Come on, Walter, you can do it. He practiced hard with his mom. Go, Walter. May we be a people of welcome, here to grow in heart and mind and spirit, and may we reach out to serve our community. Please rise in body or in spirit and join me in our affirmation of faith, followed by our doxology. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge and freedom, to serve humanity in fellowship, to the end that all souls shall grow into harmony with the source and meaning of life, thus to be covenant with each other and with all. Our church is here to serve our community, and through our community, the greater good. We ask that you give, not till it hurts, but till it feels good, as you continue your generous support through our ritual of shared commitment. You are invited to give online by scanning the QR code in your pews or to drop an offering in the offering basket. For folks online, please click the link in the chat to give to First Universalist Church. Thank you for your generosity.
This is a very exciting day for us. This is Walter's first full time through the story, so these evolving moments of our lives. So speaking of evolving moments, so I don't know if you know this, but the Jewish holiday of Sukkot started at sundown on Friday and will go through next Saturday. And the first time I encountered that, I was talking with my friend Rivka in college, and I was talking about oh yeah, that shower after you go camping, when you've been camping for a week and you haven't had a shower and you've been living kind of rough, that's the best in the world. And she's like, oh yeah, I've got that coming up with Sukkot. And I had no idea what she was talking about. So she grew up in a very conservative, strict practicing family. No, thank you. So not only did they spend as much time as they could in the Sukkot, they slept in the Sukkot. Spent all their time in the Sukkot. So to explain what this is, if you've never heard of it before, so the holiday is to remember the 40 years that the Jewish people were in the desert wandering before they went into the Holy Land. And so the Festival of the Booths, they would set up a shelter with basically 3 walls and not a complete roof. It would have at least some plant matter in it, which we brought with us. So we're going to try and build one on the side lawn later if you want to come over and see it. Not yet, no. Sit down. We're not going to play with Reverend Margaret right now. But the idea was that it wasn't a complete roof. So if it rained, you got rained on. And if you looked up, you would see the stars. And if the sun came, you would have shade, but not complete shade. And one reflection on this I thought was pretty cool is that God's light... You just got me wet. Then hold this for me. I need your help. So sometimes toys spring a leak, and that's what we're dealing with right now. But it's just water with glitter mixed in. But that God's light and love, or as we believe, universal love, is so bright, is so intense, it's so overwhelming, we almost can't believe it, that sometimes we need this little bit of shade to kind of help us to filter in just the amount that we can take in. But what I like about Sukkot, as with most of the Jewish holidays this time of year, is it's a great time to reflect. I can only imagine during 40 years in the desert, which is a whole generation, the time that you get to think about what life was like before and to imagine what life will be like after. And so during this time of reflection, as we consider what we want to put our energy towards, to think about what life was like before and what life might be like coming forward, and to discern who we want to be in that new time, in that future time, how we want to put our efforts forward. And I'm so grateful that my friend Rivka shared this with me so that we can remember sometimes when it's the roughest of times, it helps us to be so grateful for what we have and to appreciate those that do not have what we do. May this be a reflective time for you this week. And of course, it will be a great week for those spending all of their time in the sukkah. Thank you.
I welcome you into some time of reflection, beginning with deep, deep gratitude for all those juggling parenting and work and public speaking all at once. I invite you into this time that we share to share our joys and sorrows of this gathered community. If you'd like, placing your hand over your heart may help you to hear these from a more heart-centered place. And as we place stones into the bowl, I will read aloud the joys and sorrows of our gathered community. For those of you online, you're also invited to share your joys and sorrows in the chat, which we can see on the screens here. Our first is a joy offered by Nancy Gade. After many months away, our grandson comes home this week. Kitty Forbush, a joy, received pictures of Tom Williams on honor flight in DC, and he's having a wonderful time. This is a joy from Bill Shumbel, Elizabeth Ostat, and Chris Delgoyer. We assisted at Nick Tahav's this past Thursday, serving meals, clothes, and linking with case management to 120 people experiencing homelessness. And a joy from Eileen Musson. I'm healing after major surgery and it's behind me, which is a joy. A sorrow, the surgery confirmed a diagnosis of ovarian cancer. I appreciate prayers and support. As we drop one final stone into the bowl to represent all the joys and sorrows left unspoken in the silent sanctuaries of our hearts, may all be held in the heart of love. As we sit together in the stillness, you may want to ground yourself, place your feet on or towards the floor, your hands resting in your lap, wherever they're most comfortable. Close your eyes or glance upon the chalice flame to be quiet and centered. Holy One, we lift up our hearts this morning with gratitude for this gathering of people, both in person and online. We give thanks for the opportunities we've had this past week to connect more deeply with ourselves, our community, our world. Today, we lift up with tender love all those continually impacted by natural disasters, of violence, painful deaths from oppression and racism and hatred. We lift up all those near and far who are struggling with loss, grief, addiction, illnesses of the mind and the body. And we acknowledge that our livelihood, our well-being, our love is bound up with theirs. We remind ourselves again and again that we too are connected to all of the pain and indeed all of the joy in this world. We remind ourselves that life is a finely woven tapestry of pain and loss amidst love and joy, that these are all interwoven and hold us close when we're afraid, that we can multiply the joy by sharing it. May we continue to return to our breath, the everlasting reminder that we are alive. May we continue to return to our heartbeat, the everlasting reminder that the life force pulsing through us is inextricably tied to the life force of the world. May we continue to find moments of connection, reminders that we are beautiful and whole and loved, and opportunities to bring that love to our beautiful and broken world. So may it be. Amen, and blessed be. Reverend Dan Schatz once said that a blessing is both a prayer and a promise. Now, there may be many words in that statement that rub you the wrong way. Blessing, perhaps. Prayer, promise. Maybe some other words get a reaction from you. Blessed, God, reverend, even. It's not uncommon for those of us in progressive religion to bristle at the sound of certain traditional words. Some ideas or concepts have been co-opted and misused by those who would threaten to leave some of us out, belittle, or even be abusive. There are words that hold so much negativity and anger that we can't even bring ourselves to use them. For some of us, the pain from our past in religious communities or the experience of religious harm in our society runs deep. Some words have been used as weapons to draw a boundary defining who is welcome and who is kept outside. For those of us in liberal religious community, we can struggle with this idea and some of these words. Unitarian Universalist minister Reverend Barbara ten Hove has a name for these difficult and complicated words. She calls them wounded. Wounded words. The words that feel like pressing a fresh bruise. The words that have a tinge, sometimes more than a tinge, of pain or sadness, woundedness in them. These words have been used to make us feel separate. God, blessing, prayer, ministry, church, salvation, the list goes on. These wounded words are powerful and can be a real impediment and trigger for some of us. They can really get in our way. In fact, there's even a UU joke about these words. Why are UUs so bad at singing? Because they're too busy reading ahead to make sure they agree with the words. Now, I think we're wonderful at singing, just to go on the record with that. I felt a lot of this when I went to seminary. Before I went to seminary, I really had a lot of trouble with these words and figuring out their meaning for me, especially prayer. Prayer was really hard for me. It had a lot of pain. And I think it was partially because as a young lesbian woman, I was so accustomed to hearing preachers talk about praying the gay away or saying that healing was only possible if I prayed enough. So it was hurtful and frustrating, and it felt wrong. Now, I was raised in a Unitarian Universalist church, and while I knew that that meant I was loved because of who I am, not despite it, it also meant that the word prayer wasn't one I heard very often. So I came to understand that prayer was something that other people did, not Unitarian Universalists. I saw prayer as this effort to change the very core of a person, and I disagreed with that idea. But then I became a hospital chaplain, and my understanding shifted. I came to understand this idea of prayer and blessing to be intertwined. Quite frankly, both are an outpouring of love and compassion in situations where that was the only thing I could control. Being with people in such times of deep pain and sorrow, times of trauma and crisis, the only thing I could offer was my presence as my prayer and my blessing. Sometimes with words, but most of the time with tissues and graham crackers and games of tic-tac-toe with frightened children and glasses of ice water while we waited. My presence was my prayer and a blessing and a promise that they would not be alone, that they would feel held during a scary and challenging time. My prayer became the hope that someday, maybe not that day or even that month or year, things would be all right. And in that journeying with people, some with faith traditions, but most without, I came to understand that there is no single community or religion that gets to define these words. Each of us must claim and reclaim the language that speaks to our faith and our promise to one another. And that means that we might need to wrestle with some hard ideas, so that those words no longer hurt us and we can maybe even embrace them, or at least not throw them all out altogether. In this place, in this gathering of good-hearted folks, we gather and we promise to hold one another in prayer, in friendship, in hopes that someday, maybe not today, maybe not even this year, things will be all right. Gathering together reminds each of us that we play a part in that shared journey. Gathering together at church reminds us that in a world with so much need, we can add our energy and efforts along with others and create a deeper impact than we might have alone. The word church can be a challenging one for some of us. Those of us who are from the Jewish faith tradition may feel that this word means we're giving in to this dominant Christian culture, betraying heritage. Some of us, after a lifetime of railing against organized religion, wrestle with this idea of church. And some of us grew up in a church that felt and sounded very different from this one, and so the word doesn't seem like the best fit. And some of us feel that a church is a building, and the congregation is the people. For me, what matters most in this whole debate is who we are, and how we're transformed by this place and its people, and transforming the world outside its walls. We're gathered here today in this place, whatever you call it, or online, and with these people, whatever you call us, with the goal of learning and growing and reflecting on this world and our place in it. We bring many names, as we should, to speak to the power of community and love to transform and comfort. This is one of the gifts of our shared UU faith tradition. We can use different words with different definitions and meanings, and we can still gather together in an intentional way. It doesn't matter so much what we call this thing that we share. It matters more the meaning and the transformational value with it. What matters is the transformation within ourselves that makes us want to give it away. What matters most is the people. Do you remember that rhyme? I'm going to do it wrong. I've been practicing all morning. This is the church and this is the steeple. Open the doors and see all the people, right? When I was a little girl, I had gloves with faces on them, and I was obsessed with this rhyme. To me, that's church. Church is the people. Religious community is about my fellow human beings who are struggling and celebrating and sometimes tumbling headfirst through this life, just like I am. To me, this gathering of people right now, this moment, each moment is what it's about. Seeking deeper understanding, speaking truth to power, embracing one another when stuff gets hard, filling ourselves back up with the resilience and balance required to live in this world. It's about the people, each and every one of us. Now, this congregation has been around a long time, over 100 years. In that time, there have been periods of vibrant community, times of great struggle. There have been times when the pews were brimming with people and times when some wondered if it was going to survive. Since its founding, this congregation has had dreams realized and others unfulfilled. Y'all have lived through not one, but two worldwide pandemics. So this is also a story of survival, of resilience. There have been some of you who have stuck it out over time, others who have waxed and waned in your participation and attendance. There have been years when members left, others when more joined. Some of you are here for the first time today, just now, finding this vibrant, historic, and multifaceted community. And this institution, this organization, this gathering of seekers has been here, is here, and will be here as long as you, the gathered people, remain steadfast in your love of this place. And as long as you bring your whole self and share it. A steward is someone who cares for that which does not belong to them. I'll repeat that. A steward is someone who cares for that which does not belong to them. So to be a good steward, we must imagine a world beyond ourselves. Imagine the future, the people who will one day sit here in these pews. Perhaps that person's you, your future self, 20 years older, looking and feeling quite differently than you do today, bringing with you different challenges and needs and questions. Perhaps they're new people altogether. Maybe they look like you, maybe they look nothing like you. Maybe they're your children, yet to be born. Perhaps they're your children's children, grown and bringing their children here. Maybe they're new friends, soulmates even, people you haven't met yet, friendships you haven't yet imagined. Perhaps they're your friends and family, gathered here to remember you and your life well lived after you've passed. Part of being a good steward now is nurturing this community so that it's there for those people. Stewardship includes gifts of time and talent and treasure, joining committees and small group ministries, other groups that help keep this place vibrant and exciting and relevant. Stewardship is about nourishing this community while also allowing ourselves to be nourished by it. It's a relationship, an act of caring for something that does not belong to you. It is a prayer and a promise. It's a prayer that liberal religion, Unitarian Universalism, is a life-saving faith tradition, one that nurtures reason and wonder and hope in a world that breaks our hearts every single day. It's a prayer that with the same love and compassion you've found and experienced here is possible out there. It's a prayer that we can reclaim our values and put them to work in a real and tangible way. And our presence is a promise to keep showing up, to keep doing the hard work of living into covenant and relationship with one another, to help sustain this place and its people. It's a promise to help create a community where generosity ripples outward. It's a promise that wounded words can be healed. Indeed, all of us can be healed. That's what I love about this concept of wounded words, that healing is possible. It can take place when we have the courage to be vulnerable and curious and generous, open to possibility. Healing is possible when we listen to ideas deeply, ideas that we hadn't considered yet. And when we feel acknowledged in our pain and our sadness, healing is possible here. I know it, you know it. If we're both lucky, we'll experience it time and time again. By healing our broken places, by reclaiming and healing our wounded words, we're able to reclaim the ideas that once troubled us and channel our energies elsewhere. We're able to reclaim our values and our hopes for ourselves, for this world. And by making that promise to one another, to our future selves, and to this congregation, we can ensure that it will be here for those who need it. May we widen our imagination beyond ourselves and beyond the here and now. May we open ourselves to the possibility of new illustrations and incarnations of love and compassion in our world. May we, gathered in service and love, join our efforts to ensure that people are welcomed and loved for generations to come. So may it be. Amen. And blessed be. Let's join our voices together in song. If you'll rise in body or in spirit, our closing hymn is number 318, We Would Be One. Please remain standing as we extinguish our chalice flame this morning and read together the words printed on the screen. We extinguish this flame, but we keep its light in our hearts with its message of love and justice, taking it outside these walls to the world we live in until we are together again. As we close our service this morning, I invite you to again place your hand over your heart. And if you're joining us online, I invite you to turn your settings to gallery view so that we can look upon your faces. For those of us in the room, please take a moment and look around at these lovely people gathered here. Let us remind ourselves that our journey is not a solitary journey. Let us remind ourselves that we need one another. Remind ourselves that together we can do and be and create more than we could ever imagine doing on our own. And may we never, ever forget it. And let the people of the church say, Amen.